Hi, my name is Michelle, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute since I filmed, but I finally finished some books, which, you know, like, honestly was the struggle of, like, the century. Like, so far this month, I finished 2 books, which isn't great. It is, like, the 28th. No, it's the 26th. So, not really what you're shooting for. It's hard to run a book account in any capacity when you're not reading books. I did DNF several books. We're not talking about this. This is actually not my monthly wrap-up, despite the fact that I'm talking about all these things. This is reading Booktubers' favorite books. And this year I was like, I'm going to split it into 4 videos with 4 different sections. And it has been slow going because my reading this year has just, like, it's not been great. Like, we've had, like, a reading slump of a year. This month been particularly bad, but I did finally finish the last 2 books I needed for this video, which is our thriller, mystery, horror section. Although I don't actually think there's any horror in here. I think the problem was I read a lot of horror last year, and so everyone's favorite horror novels were novels they had already read, so they kind of got scrapped from the list. So for this video, let me tell you the books that I read. I have been filming this video for actual months and months, so I don't know what I have footage of. Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, and this was also from Meg's list of favorite books of 2022. This is like a time travel thriller mystery. It is about this mother whose son stabs someone in her driveway, and she has to go, she like gets stuck in this like accidental time travel situation in which she keeps going backwards in time, and she has to like uncover the mystery of like what the heck is her son all entangled with, and like why did he murder someone. I cut all my hair off yesterday. It was a choice. I should have made a different one, but it's okay. I just finished this, which is the first book I am reading for my favorite thriller, mystery, horror section. I actually don't think there's any horror. I think everyone's favorite horror I had already read. That's neither here nor there. I just finished this. And I loved the end so much. This book is kind of like a speculative mystery. It is pretty early in the novel. Her son winds up killing someone, and she has to go back in time and try to prevent the murder from happening. And when I say go back in time, it's kind of like involuntary time travel, because she keeps waking up on the day before, a day prior, and she keeps going back in time trying to like figure out the chain reaction that has caused this murder. And I really enjoyed this. There was several like kind of like big reveals throughout, and I had predicted all but the very, very last one. I love a like, you know, 95% reveal, and it was really good. It reminded me a lot of The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, which was a book I read and I really enjoyed last year, except this one focuses on kind of mother-son and also like a marital, like it's very much a nuclear family sort of thing. She's following, like I said, she's trying to prevent her son from murdering this person, and she's kind of like going back through and trying to think about like what things in her son's life could have caused this. And it was like I said, it was really good. I predicted a lot of the twists, and I didn't know how I felt about that because it wasn't like predictable. It wasn't like I was like, oh, this is the same story I've read before. It was just, I think Gillian McAllister gives you enough clues where you can figure it out pretty early. And some of them I felt like I figured it out like a little too early. Like I figured it out like many chapters before any of our characters did, but I was okay with that because they were like really fun and interesting, and it was interesting to see kind of like how they played out and then how the characters would discover like what was happening. But it was a really fun book. I think it had a lot of heart. I love a mystery novel with a lot of heart, and I really do feel like this had quite a bit of heart. I did cry a little bit at the end. I love when I tear up at the end of a thriller because it's like cozy. It's weird to explain this as cozy because I don't think most of the book feels cozy at all. But I really loved the kind of emotional elements that it explored. There was a lot of conversation around motherhood and like guilt around motherhood that I was like, overall, really, really enjoyed. Then next I read Confessions by Kanae Minato, which was in Katie Colson's and Books and Lala's favorite books of 2022. This is a Japanese translated mystery novel. I don't really know where to place this one. I read like a lot of the weekend. It was the first weekend I've had in 2022 where I haven't had like a lot of plans, been on deadline, or like traveling. It was like a chill weekend. I did some reading, and I'm gonna tell you about what I read. First, I read Confessions by Kayla Minato. It's a Japanese author, translated from Japanese. It's like an international bestseller. I think it went really like viral in Japan and then has been translated into a bunch of different languages. I want to read you the author bio because like this is my favorite part. A former home economics teacher and housewife who wrote Confessions, her first novel, between household chores, the book has sold more than 3 million copies in Japan, where it won several literary awards, including the Radio Drama Award, the Detective Novel Prize for New Writers, and the National Bestsellers Award, and was adapted into an Oscar shortlisted film directed by someone else, and this person lives in Japan. I love how she's like, I wrote this between chores. Also, this book is like pretty dark and heavy, and I love that it was just like written by like a stay-at-home mom girly pop. Also, 3 million copies just in Japan is like a lot. I don't know what the population of Japan is. Hey Google, what's the population of Japan?
In 2021, the population of Japan was 125,681,593.
Okay, so like 3% of the population. That's like huge. There are 3 times as many people in America, I think, vaguely. And for a book to sell 1 million copies is like crazy. Like, I think Prince Harry's memoir sold like 1 million copies on the first day. I think this has been out for a while. Anyway, the premise of this book is we open with this teacher and she's talking to her class, and she's talking to her class about why she's retiring. She's retiring at the end of the year, and she's telling her class why. And it comes out that she's retiring because essentially like her daughter died. But then the story unfolds from there, and we spend every chapter with a different character throughout the book, kind of uncovering the layers of what happened to this teacher and this teacher's daughter, and then like the ripple effects of the choices that she makes in this first chapter, kind of how they hit a bunch of other people. I have never read a book like this. Like, this is unlike anything I've ever read. I need to get more into reading books in translation. Like, this is something I always want to do, but it's so hard because there's also so many books in English I want to read. But I think when we expose ourselves to books written in other languages, it really exposes you to like a whole new level of like difference. Because I don't think like an American thriller would have been written like this. I didn't love, and this I think is an effect, it is translated by Stephen Snyder, and I think especially after reading Babel by R.F. Kuang, our queen, I have like a lot of respect for translators. I think translating is like an obscenely difficult piece of work, but I found some of the prose, like the writing itself, to be really like rudimentary in terms of like, didn't give me much. And I don't know if that's a fault of like the author or the translator, or if that's just like stylistically what Japanese novels tend to do, but that wasn't my favorite. Like, I would have loved a little bit more like texture within the writing. It was like a very like cold, bare bones storytelling of like the events as they happened, but like read it in a single day, so can't be too mad about it. Katie Colson and Books and Lala both loved this book. For me, overall, it was middling. Even though the story was really compelling, I would like really encourage other people to read it, just because I think it's a fast-paced read. It's not very long, and it is like an interesting, unique story telling that I haven't read before. It's Five Survive by Holly Jackson, and this one was a little bit of a like mistake of a book to read. That's not true. Hold on to your horses. I actually really enjoyed this book. I picked this book because it was in Leena Norm's favorite books of the year, and also then it was in Poland Banana's favorite books of the year, and I thought it was going to count for Meg in the books because Meg loves Holly Jackson. Like, The Good Girl's Guide to Murder was in Meg's favorite books, and I was like, well, I don't want to read the whole series. Like, I don't want the commitment of reading a whole series, so I'm just going to read this by the same author because it's getting good reviews. And then in January, Meg did a video where she read Five Survive and she hated it. And so it's not Meg's favorite book. And then I also read this book. This is Five Survive by Holly Jackson. When I tell you I read this book in 2 sittings maybe, like, and only because I like had to get up and do things. Like, I could not put this book down. I found it very compelling. I found it read very similarly to No Exit by Taylor Adams, which is an excellent thriller, like really fast paced. It has similar vibes in that we have like a pretty small cast of characters. Like, we have 6 teens, they're like upper teens, like 18 to 21 year olds in this RV, and then we have a sniper outside that is shooting them. And it takes place over the course of a single night. They like are going on spring break in this RV, and they like pull over to like camp for the night, and then a sniper shows up. And as the title implies, only 5 of the 6 of them survive. And it was thrilling. We're like uncovering these secrets. There's like a lot of twists, but just like the setup of this, like, I loved how just like engaging it was. Like, it was such a fun read. Like, it was such a fun read. It wasn't a thriller that like left me like with a lot to think about at the end, and it does make me want to pick up The Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I'm like very stingy with my YA reads. This was an excellent one. It didn't read a ton like YA. It's like very upper YA, almost new adult. Not in like the new adult sort of like, there's not content that would be bad for teens to read, but if you don't typically like teens, then I think this book could still work for you. In a similar way that No Exit works, even though the main girl is like the same age as the guys in this book. Like, they're very similar books. Not similar in twist wise, but similar that if you enjoyed that one, I think you'll enjoy this one. Okay, that was like really incoherent. I apologize. I like enjoyed it for what it was, which was just like a super fast-paced, fun thriller. Like I said, this gave me similar vibes as No Exit by Taylor Adams. So if you really liked No Exit by Taylor Adams, I think you might like this book. And then I read Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn, which was on Chandler Ainsley's favorite books of 2022. And I've like heard Katie Colson and like Meg mention it as well. They both really enjoyed it. I'm sure this is like intensely crooked, but whatever. I'm in like a fuzzy poncho, so like the production value is just not here. You can hear the washing machine probably going because I have my door open. But I wanted to give you like the fastest update ever about, I finished Killers of a Certain Age. It's over there somewhere. I finished Killers of a Certain Age last night, and I wanted to give an update. I really enjoyed it. It was like a really fun, interesting voice. I think it would make such a fun movie. I hope it gets picked up and turned into a film because it was just so dynamic and interesting. I listened to the audiobook for a lot of it, and that was really fun. I could also see it being like a TV show. So Killers of a Certain Age follows these 4 women, and they have just recently retired from this place called the Museum, and it's an agency that like, you know, assassinates people. And they get sent on this cruise as like a retirement gift from their agency. And when they're on the cruise, they figure out, well, someone is trying to kill them. And things kind of spiral from there. I thought most of this book was going to take place on the cruise. And so and it doesn't. Like, we start on the cruise and we kind of start with that situation on the cruise. But then, like, things continue after the cruise. Like, it's not all isolated on this boat, which is what I thought was happening. And I'm glad it didn't all take place on the boat because I really enjoyed the dynamics of them, like, interacting with the broader world as they do later on. The characters were really interesting. It was a little bit hard for me, and I think this was just a me problem. I've been having a hard time reading. This is the first book I finished this month, and it is currently the 14th. We're halfway through the month and I finished one book, so I'm like forgetting how to read. But anyway, we're following these 4 elderly women. I listened to the audiobook. They're in their like 60s, I think. They're not like ancient. But I thought it was really fun, really good. A good time, just like really fun. I don't know if it was like an all-time favorite for me. To me, it was like a really unique story in the characters, but the writing itself wasn't something that is gonna like stick with me in the long run. Like, not every book needs to, you know. Like, it was a great time. It kind of read like YA a little bit, except with like different age characters. Not in anything except like how enjoyable it was, like how much you could tell that like enjoyment and adventure was like part of the tone. Like, we didn't worry too much about like realism. Not in a way that, again, was unrealistic. You know me. You and me know each other. And you know that realism is not something that's important to me. So when I say something was not like, realism wasn't a priority, it's not a priority for me either. So like, best you were on the same page. But it read a lot like those like teen spy books. Maybe this is like a whole spy genre. Maybe I just have only read teen spy books, and so I think this is a YA novel. But truly, it's just like a spy book. Like, this is how spy books work. They're not exactly spies, but like, they're like spy adjacent. Like, they're going undercover, going into disguise, and like murdering people. But anyway, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I only have one more left. I've already started it. Started this morning. And it's The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, which I saved these 2 for the end, and these both have to do with old people. These ones are solving a murder, though, not murdering people, so slightly different there. I'm like literally like 20 pages in, not even 16 pages in, so I actually don't know entirely the premise yet. I know the kind of like larger series premise, and that's we're following these like 4 or 5 or 6, a small gang of people in a retirement community or retirement home, as they like solve murders, and they like go and investigate cold cases using their like skills from their lives, but they're like because they're older people. I think they're like greatly underestimated. The voice in this is spectacular. Like, it is just like, so the characters are like jump off the page, funny, lively. It feels very British. I knew this was British because like Richard Osman is like a famous British man, and this is like Britain's favorite novel. Like, I think it was on the Sunday Times list for like a long time, but I didn't realize like how British. Like, it's very British, which is kind of fun. I also read The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is one of Meg's favorite books. I don't think this book was in her favorites from last year, but I think it was like the third book in the series. But I'm not going to read the whole series for one video. But I did read this book. I do know Meg enjoys it, and it was also in Katie Colson's favorites from 2022. And this group of elderly people who like come together, and like every Thursday they meet to discuss cold cases, but then murder happens on their doorstep and they have to like discover what happened in that case. I read this one and I wasn't really surprised. I wasn't really expecting to love it, and truly I didn't like love it, but I think that's just because I'm not really a mystery girly, is what we're discovering about myself. Mystery is just like not the genre for me, and that's okay. But I think this was like peak mystery. Like, if I was gonna love a mystery novel, it would have been this one. Tell me why I didn't realize, like, this book got so emotional. I was crying at the end. There's like a Fleabag-esque moment, if you know you know, towards the end. Crying at the very, very end. Like, this was emotional. I didn't realize it was gonna be, but it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook of this one, and I think that was like by far the way to go, because it like was like delightfully British, which this book is delightfully British, and I think it should, like, you should listen to the audiobook so you like get that delightfully British essence. Let's go through and rank these. So in last place, to no one's surprise, is Confessions by Kanae Minato. This book did not work for me. It was not a book that worked super well for me. I think I still gave it like 3 stars. Like, it is in no way like a bad book, but it's a really fast read, but I found it a little repetitive. Like, I kind of got bored because we were just hearing the same story over and over again from different perspectives, and I just like felt like the writing and me just like did not vibe. And then I would say after that, and like, I enjoyed the rest. The other 4 I like actually actively enjoyed. But I would say in 4th place was Thursday Murder Club. Even though I really did enjoy it and was like surprised by like how heartwarming and delightful it was just like a mystery in like the truest sense of the word, and I just don't think that's the genre for me, and like love to know that about myself going forward. It's not a genre that I'd spend a lot of time in, and like sometimes you go to a genre that you don't spend a lot of time in and you're like surprised by how much you like it. That was not the case for me in Thursday Murder Club, so it's a bummer. And then I would say probably Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn, but it's really close to the 2nd place one. I really loved these characters. I think it was really fun. It was like such a fun story. I think it would make such a good movie. Like, I think it would be such a fun movie because it kind of has those like heist adventure-y vibes, in a way that's like, it's not low stakes because like people are trying to murder them, but it feels almost a little camp in that it feels a little outlandish, and so it makes it like less scary, but just as like atmospheric and fun. Does anyone understand what I'm saying? I don't even know if I understand what I'm saying. And then in 2nd place, I would say Five Survive by Holly Jackson. I found this just to be like such a, like, this is what I look for sometimes in a thriller. Like, I didn't feel like there was a ton of like meat on the bone behind things. Like, I don't remember a lot about the story already. Like, I don't feel like there was like a strong moral message. Maybe I just forgot it underneath the story, but it was just so engaging. I read this in a single day. Just like, for me, it was like a big page turner. I was on the edge of my seat and really, really enjoyed the pacing. I am very much looking forward to starting the Good Girls Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson because I enjoyed this one so much, and I think that series is even more highly talked about. I read a lot less YA these days, which is why I don't think I've picked up that series before, but like, this was so good that like I'm willing to step into the YA world for Holly Jackson. And then my absolute favorite was Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. Again and again, I'm proven wrong that I hate time travel novels. Turns out I'm fine with time travel novels. I think my hypothesis about me hating time travel novels has been thoroughly, thoroughly smashed because this one was so enjoyable. I absolutely loved the time travel element. I loved the mother-son element. I love a thriller with some heart. This reminded me a lot of The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, which is an Apple TV series with Jennifer Garner now, which I haven't seen the TV show, but I'm going to watch it, which was one of my favorite books from this video series last year. So I was excited to get another like thriller with heart. This one is definitely like a little bit more thriller vibes than The Last Thing He Told Me, but I still really, really loved it. thank you for watching. Hopefully I read some more books so I can talk to you about things, because like if I don't read, I can't talk to you about books. Like, it's really a cause and effect situation. Anyway, I will be coming to you with my sad, measly monthly wrap-up in a few days, and then we'll be like in the summer months, and I think maybe summer will be my reading season. You'll have to stick around to find out. Subscribe if you want to watch more videos from me, and I will see you next time. Bye.